different factions within them. But what ends up the one black vampire ends up getting assassinated, the one that ran the hood, and then he kind of goes. Robert's like,
by whom?
By the crew that Robert was. They get assassinated by the crew that Robert was a part of.
And how do they kill them? I mean, stake through the heart, silver bullet.
Vampire. Okay, so vampires. They're in my story. Same way you kill a human, more or less. They're just, for the most part, they're not. You can't really poison them unless you have poison that's designed for vampires. But any type of trauma, blunt force, whatever, And in this one, as Robert finds out, a lot of the vampires aren't that much stronger than humans. They all have different. There's certain groups that are, and they have different abilities and capacities. But he starts to find. He's like, his vision of a vampire is everyone's like Dracula, and but he's starting to realize, wait a minute, I knew that guy.
So you can take him out with a tire iron if you need to,
depending on if they're not the physically strong class. Oh yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Okay.
Now there's certain things about them that they can kind of get temporary because they do drink blood. They can, they go in their vampire rage and make up for some of their physical liabilities. But yeah. If they're not tough enough and you shoot them enough times, they'll die.
Can they go out in the daytime?
Yes, they can.
But
no one ever talks about it, and that's the thing. That's the thing that has helped cover them, because every once in a while people have said, "Man, what the hell?" And then everyone's like, "Man, it's daytime," and it's like, that's not a vampire. It's the daytime,
right?
But there's a reason why they can do that. That ties into why it ties in at the end of the book on why they're really so secretive. It's because they tell the legend lore is it's magic, but it's not magic. It's something else that allows vampires to do what they do, And I'll give you a hint. All I'll say is they found that 8% of the human genome is created by viruses. The reason why we evolved from creatures that would never survive today, and at least most of the scientists I've been reading about, is because of viruses.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
8% of our genome is virus.
So these vampires have a different virus in them that can... Okay, got it. Okay.
And they said that the leap between us and our pre-viral state may not be anywhere close, or maybe even higher than the leap between a mortal human and a vampire.
So would this be akin to if the vampires who have different viral DNA would react differently than the average person?
To what?
To something, to fill in the blank. They would react differently because of the different viral DNA.
Yeah. I mean, and that's part of why they don't catch diseases.
Which could that be a reason why some people who get the coronavirus are asymptomatic and others are not? Again, there was no coronavirus when you wrote this book.
No, there was none. Not even there was the
flu.
Well,
there was no.
No, there were coronaviruses.
Correct, but not this.
Yeah,
not the
right.
Was it Nuvo virus? I think they call it.
Yeah.
Right.
But and that's the thing is that. So
if you're asymptomatic, you're a vampire. See what we're doing here. You see how this works, folks.
But again, none of that. It's not okay to talk about any of that. So he's going through this society, finding different people who talk about things you're not supposed to talk about.
Sure.
And every once in a while, certain things happen to those people. He's like, but they need him.
Right.
And they go, if you do this, we're going to kill you. But he finds out.
No, they're not. They need him to do this.
They need him to do this. And he's a descendant line from the prince. So the prince is he's the prince of all vampires. Mm-hmm. But even he's not really in control. He's actually like he's the way that people see Trump or presidents. Mm-hmm. He's there for a purpose. You know what I mean? And he's like, I'm the prince. And he's like, but he's really he's there. He's kind of a stooge too.
Okay.
And so Robert is sort of protected because of his connection with him, but he's only connected long enough to get done in, and so you go through how does he deal with that, and then he's got this relationship with this ancient 2,500-year-old vampire, woman.
Is this the head vampire lady?
Yes.
Okay.
But then there's another one that's, her enemy, who she's like, if this person wakes up, they're going to create a revolution. And so then there's a whole deal of like she's trying to use Robert to try to undermine this other side.
So one is Mitch McConnell, the other one is Nancy Pelosi.
Right.
Okay.
And so there's all the different, and there's different, even within there, there's even within that scope, there's like, well, what is the actual society? What is the actual, foundation of power? Like, why does someone have power? Is it because they're stronger, because people accept that they have power? Is it the rules? And so it gets into the whole deal of he's still a white male. Can a white male and he starts becoming really strong, like even stronger than this god? They call her the god. She's like the god vampire. That's what they call her, because she's so far beyond. She's so far beyond even the elders that like 3 or 4 elders trying to fight her wouldn't touch her.
And he's having a relationship with her.
No, well, not a sexual relationship. She's. It's more of like a minion relationship. It's more of like a mentor kind of thing.
I thought you were going to the sexual relationship because he was receiving antibodies, then becoming stronger. Okay.
No. He does something else that really pisses everyone off. So every vampire tends to have 5 or 10 bound. They're their minions. So what he does is he bans from his little section. He hates the term bound because it makes him feel like he associates it with something very negative. So he doesn't allow anyone to he just calls them his friends. And he ends up falling in love with a young black woman who turns out to be a business genius. People don't know because she is
not a vampire.
No, she's in the bound category.
She's in the bound, okay.
So he puts her in charge of running the financial zone. And she doubles, triples. She makes money for the whole coven, but she's 1, black, and 2, abound. And then they're like, it's freaking out the elites.
It's the double negative.
Yes. And so
but they like the results.
They like the results, but they're like, what? You're not supposed to do that. And he's like, well, where does it say? Where does it say I'm not supposed to do that?
So she's totally outside of the stereotypical. She's not a vampire.
No.
She's not a man.
No.
She's not white.
Right.
So she's a totally different from any of the rest of them. But she's now ascended to a place of power, and they almost can't do anything but accept her, even though they despise her.
Because and Robert starts
like Donald Trump. Republicans hate Donald Trump, but he's the guy in charge. But he's the guy in charge.
So situationally, kinda, yeah. I mean, there's certain. As far as why you don't remove him,
correct.
Yes,
Yeah, exactly.
Why you're like, oh man, I mean, obviously personality wise and what her whole perception. But here's the thing: so she's a black woman. She's Afrocentric, but she's all about private equity. Mm-hmm. So then there's that conflict, because people, of course, they don't know that she's involved with the vampire class, but and so this is sort of an alteration, although it's also based off of a couple real life situations. And she's like, Robert was pretty good at business, but she is just like,
she's a wizard.
She's a wizard. And the thing is that vampires don't, for the most part, vampires don't understand the stock market. And there's a weird thing about that. And the reason why is because they don't really need money. They use money to control territory. So the stock market was always something that the humans that they were dealing with were sort of hard for them to control because it's just a different mentality. I mean, there tend to be old school money. You own a business, you own Rockefeller, that kind of crap. The stock market was always something that vampires tended to have a hard time really grasping. The idea of investing money, taking a risk, that it's just because it's not like they can go in and control the mind of a shop owner or whatever.
Okay.
And then they find there's certain rules. Like there's certain, like for one thing, you can't control the mind. You can't control the mind of any cops. Like certain parts of the society are immune from their powers.
Police are immune from the mind control part of it.
Police, almost all, depending, most judges at a certain height, state senators, like mayors, often, depending if it's a small enough town, aren't. But and he's like wondering, why is this? Because the way that his first job was to get, Robert's first job was to get, do you remember the savings and loan scandal in 1990?
Yes.
So in the book, he's the shadow lawyer. So if you notice something, only one man went to jail from that whole thing.
Really?
Yeah, one person. It's insane. And I was looking at that case. How the hell does it happen? So I just said Robert did it. But whatever he did, he couldn't get the main guy off. Mm-hmm. He would try to control people's minds. It was ordained that he went down. And he finds out that there's other forces at play beyond their powers that compel, like they can only control things so much. It's almost like the time travel loop thing, where you go back in time and you try to I'm going to kill baby Hitler, but it doesn't work out. You go into the room and someone hits you over the head, or you show up, you get a flat tire, that kind of thing.
Right.
So he's finding that there's that final destination where no matter what he does, he could get all these other people out because nobody knows who they are. But this guy, once you get into a certain level of human high-profile understanding, it's much more difficult for a vampire to alter that course. And he gets into learning, why is that? Okay. If you're just some nobody on the street, some nobody hustler, or some nobody white collar criminal, he can get that person off.
Sure.
As long as he doesn't. But there's always a point. He's got to get them off before they get to a certain point in the system. Once they get to a certain point in the system, nothing that he can do.
It's part of destiny now.
There's a certain balancing fact.
Okay.
And so most other vampires are supposed to just shut up. This guy goes, I need to go find out, why is there balancing? So he heads off to New Orleans and he's trying to figure his stuff out, and you're not supposed to do that. And so it creates certain conflicts and issues. And even though the other vampires who were given the goddess's blood are enhanced, because people are noticing that these other vampires are advancing faster than they're advancing in 4 or 5 days what usually takes the other vampires to advance in 30, 40 years.
And how are they achieving that?
The assumption is, the others pretty much is because the goddess vampire, when they were created, did something to them. She basically altered them. But Robert is advancing farther than them, and she doesn't know why. And it's sort of the game because she can read minds. She can kill you with a word. She's that she can't do that to the other goddess, but she's so powerful. She doesn't have to fight you. She can just be like, you're dead. But she can't do that either. She can't just do that to everybody, because there's a series of events that no matter how powerful you are, if you do too much, if you push too hard, if you squeeze too hard, it creates a cataclysm or a chain reaction of events that will work against you. But
there are still some of these individuals who, for some reason, they just climb the ladder far quicker than the rest. They go from almost obscurity to the top of the heap.
Well, so the club that he was part of, power-wise, they're stronger, but they're they claim to be these. He calls them the counterculture club to make fun of them.
Okay,
because he leaves them. He said, "I don't want to hang out with you pricks anymore." And they keep trying, every time he comes across, there are a few black vampires, and they always try to make him out to be the racist. Mm-hmm. Because he just doesn't know what's going on. So they go, oh, he said this, and oh, yeah. So he's trying to figure out why they keep trying to make all the black people in Chicago mad at him.